The president's allies are flailing as they try to defend him in both the impeachment inquiry and the controversy over his decision to abandon the Kurds. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. As he faces an intensifying impeachment inquiry in the House, the president is also dealing with nearly unanimous backlash from both Republicans and Democrats over his decision to abandon our Kurdish allies in Syria, who helped American soldiers fight ISIS. And yet, even after being accused of a tragic betrayal by our Kurdish allies, yesterday Trump patted himself on the back during a speech in which he announced that he was lifting sanctions on Turkey.
Today's announcement validates our course of action with Turkey that only a couple of weeks ago was scorned. And now people are saying, wow, what a great outcome. Congratulations.
No one is saying that. But if they did, judging from your cadence, they were super high. Wow. He sounds like a local mattress salesman. Wow, what a great deal. Second, anytime Trump says people are saying, those people do not exist. Trump uses people are saying the same way guys use my friend has a problem when they ask their doctors for Cialis. You know, Trump says he doesn't think we should be fighting wars in the Middle East, but let's just be clear about something. Donald Trump is not and has never been an anti-war president. He just pretends to be one. All he cares about is what you can do for him personally. And reporters who actually talked to the Kurds on the ground yesterday confirmed that they definitely were not saying, wow, what a great outcome.
They're not listening to President Trump anymore. He has totally broken their trust. They think that President Trump has betrayed them and that he is effectively a joke, that he doesn't keep his word. The one people they did trust was the United States, but now U.S. troops have been forced to leave. They're seeing signs from the Kurds saying, we love you, we still appreciate the role that you, the U.S. troops, did, but your president betrayed us.
And that's what Trump does. He betrays everybody. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do for him. As soon as you're not useful to him, he'll discard you. I mean, just look at how many of his former aides he's attacked or thrown under the bus. In fact, I'm pretty sure Steve Bannon still lives under one. And just take Rudy Giuliani, Trump's personal lawyer, and perhaps his most vocal and consistent defender. After two of Rudy's associates, Lev and Igor, were arrested, and it was reported, that's their real names, it was reported that Rudy himself was under criminal investigation. Here's what Trump had to say about his longtime relationship with his friend and ally.
Is Rudy Giuliani still your personal attorney?
Well, I don't know. I haven't spoken to Rudy. I spoke to him yesterday briefly. He's a very good attorney, and he has been my attorney. Yeah, sure.
You know it's bad when you keep changing tenses. Was he my lawyer? I don't know. Is he? Yeah, I mean, he has been. Will he be in the future? I mean, yeah, oh, sure. But this is what Trump does. The minute you're a burden on him, he'll dump you. In fact, now that Rudy is under criminal investigation, Trump makes him sit outside when they fly on Air Force One. But this is Trump in his essence. Everything with him is a transaction. The Trump who betrays his allies as soon as they're no longer useful to him is also the same guy who tried to orchestrate a corrupt quid pro quo with Ukraine for his own personal political benefit. This behavior is obviously corrupt and illegal, and we already have all the evidence. In fact, Trump and his aides have basically confessed to all of it. So Republicans are running out of ways to defend it. For example, earlier this month, Trump insisted that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had personally assured him that his phone call with the president of Ukraine, in which he famously said the words, "I would like you to do us a favor," was perfect.
I read Mitch McConnell's statement yesterday, and he read my phone call. And as you know, he put out a statement that said that was the most innocent phone call he's read. And I spoke to him about it, too. He read my phone call with the president of Ukraine, Mitch McConnell. He said that was the most innocent phone call.
Once again, he can't even mimic actual human syntax when he lies. No human talks like that. And for our purposes, just go along with the idea that Mitch McConnell is a human, even though he is clearly at least 60% dried apple doll. Seriously, just imagine, if you can, the most innocent phone call you've ever witnessed. You've never watched your spouse order takeout and said, "Wow, honey, that was the most innocent phone call I've ever seen. You ordered that pizza without murdering anyone." But still, Trump said he spoke to McConnell, and McConnell told him it was an innocent phone call. There's just one problem. McConnell doesn't seem to remember it that way.
The president has said that you told him that his phone call with the Ukrainian president was perfect
and innocent. Do you believe that the president has handled this Ukrainian situation perfectly?
We've not had any conversations on that subject.
So he was lying about that?
You have to ask him. I don't recall any conversations with the president about that phone call.
Wow, even Mitch McConnell won't back him up now. By the end of this whole thing, Republicans are just going to start pretending they don't even know who Donald Trump is. That man was the president? I just assumed he was a Halloween decoration meant to scare away pranksters on mischief night. The problem for Republicans is that the facts are so clear that there's nothing they can say or do to defend them. For example, those words Trump said on the phone call, "I would like you to do us a favor," would seem like a classic quid pro quo. But this week, Trump booster Sean Hannity tried out a new, even dumber defense. It's not a crime because that's just how Trump talks.
By the way, it's important to remember one more thing about the president's phone call with Ukraine. And the president said, "I'd like you to do us a favor." Okay, well, it's a favor. Okay, there were no strings attached. Zero quid pro quo. And let's be clear. The term "do us a favor," well, we all have go-to phrases. I'll say a lot. The president uses them all the time.
That's your argument? That saying "do us a favor" to a foreign leader is equivalent to you saying "you know"? You have to understand, Trump says "do us a favor" the way Valley Girls say "like," or how Jesse Pinkman says "bitch" all the time. It doesn't mean he's a criminal, that's just how he talks. Also, he's a criminal. Republicans have also tried insisting that there was no quid pro quo because the quo in this case would be the military aid Trump was holding up, and it would only be a quid pro quo if Ukraine knew that aid was being delayed. Here's one Republican congressman responding to shocking testimony from a key witness in the impeachment inquiry this week on Fox News.
Neither he or any other witness has provided testimony that the Ukrainians were aware that military aid was being withheld. You can't have a quid pro quo with no quo.
That's how dumb these guys are. They've gone from "there was no quid pro quo" to "there was a quid pro but no quo." Soon they're going to try "there was a quid and there was a quo, but we are definitely not pros." But then that argument also fell through when it was reported that Ukraine did know the aid was being held up. So then Trump's allies tried yet another new argument. It might have been wrong, but it wasn't a crime. Here's Trump's former acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker making that argument on Fox News this week. Again, this is a man who was in charge of the Justice Department.
I'm a former prosecutor, and what I know is this is a perfect time for a preliminary hearing where you would say, show us your evidence. What evidence of a crime do you have? I mean, the Constitution, sort of abuse of power is not a crime.
Yeah, it is. Also, you look like abuse of power should be your wrestling name. Please welcome to the ring, abuse of power. He's ripping up the Constitution. So because they've totally run out of arguments, Republicans have now been reduced to physically obstructing the impeachment inquiry. For example, yesterday we told you that House Republicans had orchestrated a dumb stunt in which they held a press conference and then stormed into a secure hearing room in order to interfere with the deposition. The congressman who led the stunt, Matt Gaetz, compared it to the movie 300. Now, in case you forgot, here's what that movie was like.
This is Sparta!
Okay, so now let's see those Republicans storm the hearing in the way they described was like the movie 300.
We're gonna go and see if we can get inside. So let's see if we can get in.
This is Sparta! So... That wasn't 300, that was like 3. Makes your publicity stunt a lot less dramatic when you have to shuffle along like you're in a crowded mall at Christmas. Look at these guys. They all look like they're headed to the bathroom during an intermission at a Broadway show. Now, it turns out Trump himself had advanced knowledge of this stunt and approved of it, but it turns out the stunt was even dumber than we thought because a lot of those Republicans were actually allowed to be in the room they were supposedly storming.
A bunch of them made a big show of storming the secure facility in the Capitol where impeachment investigators are deposing witnesses. We should note that some of these folks are on the committees doing the investigating, so they don't need to storm the proceedings because some were already allowed inside and had been inside before.
Guys, you can't storm a room you're allowed to be in. That's not storming, that's entering. You storm the beaches of Normandy. You go to the Jersey Shore. We've taken Point Pleasant, boys! Even Republicans are having trouble defending Trump's corrupt behavior now because the facts are clear and support for impeachment is rising in the polls. If the House completes its investigation and officially impeaches Trump, I bet at least a few Americans will take a rip off a bong and say,
Wow, what a great outcome. Congratulations.
This has been a closer look.